Very good evening. It's late nights with Sunny and Shay here on the BBC right across the Midlands. Now, cryptocurrency is becoming increasingly popular despite the risk that comes with it. Money expert Martin Lewis spoke to the newspaper about it only last week and believes that when it comes to cryptocurrency, if you can't afford to lose the money you put in, do not invest in it, is what he has said. He's added it's a gamble like all forms of stocks and shares, like all forms of investment, and putting money in gold. That's your choice, but if you do it your way, the investment should work for you. That doesn't mean you won't lose money, though. Those are the words of money expert Martin Lewis. Well, throughout this week and last week, we have seen a lot of discussion around cryptocurrency with the likes of Elon Musk. And so we wanted to really delve into and get some understanding. Can we break this down into basic terms that we can all understand? Because yes, we've got credit cards. Yes, we have bank accounts, but cryptocurrency is a little bit different. And to break this down into something that's a little bit more digestible for us all, we're delighted to say that we're joined tonight by technology expert Guy Cocker. Guy, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you so much for talking with us tonight.
Hi, boss. Yeah, nice to be here.
And now, Guy, cryptocurrency is a real buzzword at the moment, but the truth of the matter is, if you're not somebody who's looking to invest in it, you may not actually understand it. You know, people will have heard of Bitcoin, but there's many other cryptocurrencies. Can you just explain what cryptocurrency is, firstly, for, let's call it, the basics for us dummies that don't know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So cryptocurrency as an idea actually started in the late 90s. Someone came up with it, a guy called Nick Szabo, a computer scientist, who developed the idea of it and called it BitGold, but it never fully launched. It's really credited as Bitcoin as being the first true cryptocurrency. So it was developed by either an individual or a group that were known as Satoshi Nakamoto, Japanese name. But no one has ever found out who this person or this group is, this pseudonym. And basically, the idea is that a decentralized network. So traditional currency is, it's tracked centrally. It's tracked through things like banks and ledgers. This is a decentralized network that tracks transactions that happen through different currencies, like Bitcoin. There are other popular ones like Ethereum. There are what are known as meme coins like Dogecoin. A lot of these have gained traction in the last year, especially as Bitcoin hit its peak value of $60,000 per coin. And the idea at the moment, really, for something like Bitcoin is that it's closest to something like gold in as much as it's a store of value. The idea, I think, originally for Bitcoin was that it would be used for transactions, but actually it's not very good for transactions because it costs money to do transactions on the Bitcoin network, because it's this decentralized network that has to track that transaction, so someone has to get paid to do that, and also because it takes time for these transactions to be verified. So I'm not sure if that's broken it down for you anywhere that's easier to understand, but it's a very interesting technology that's coming to the fore at the moment, and I think a lot of people are gaining interest in it because they see it as a way of making money.
And when we do see that, when Bitcoin does make it into the news, we see the billionaires playing with people's money, because it takes someone like an Elon Musk or Amazon to say, oh, we're going to use it. No, we're going to not use it. And then you can see it see the market change so drastically up and down. So how much control do the big players have in this? And obviously the big companies have in the price and your investment?
Well, the bigger players like Elon Musk have a lot of control, and I think that's where the Martin Lewis quote comes in of saying, don't invest what you can't afford to lose. I think a lot of people that are involved in cryptocurrencies are highly evangelical about it, especially on social media, and are really trying to pump this thing up so that loads of people get involved in it. It drives the price up, and essentially the whole cryptocurrency market becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. I think Elon Musk is the sort of the face of the operation. I'm sure people know who he is, but he's the head of Tesla. He's a very influential guy. He helped to set up PayPal before Tesla. And whenever he tweets about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or talks about it, there was a conference a couple of weeks ago in Miami, the price tends to go up. And so that's, a lot of people involved in traditional finance see that as manipulating the market, and in many ways it is. And the central problem with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies at the moment is they're highly volatile. So for the last, in the beginning of the year, Bitcoin in particular shot up massively, and it has in the last 10 years been the best investment that you could make if you cashed out at the beginning of this year.
Right.
What's happened in this week is that Amazon have posted a job posting in America for someone who is experienced in cryptocurrencies, and again, that's driven the price not as high as it got to previously, but it's added about 15-20% of value to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Right.
So what you have is an incredibly volatile market, and I think that people, if your listeners are thinking about getting into it, you have to be very comfortable with seeing your investment. Let's say you put £100 in there, that
Right.
£100 could very easily drop to £50, or it could go up to £200, and you've just got to be comfortable with that ride. And Martin Lewis' quote is very correct. Don't put in what you can't afford to lose. I think speaking personally as a technology expert, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in cryptocurrency, and it does have a lot of good stuff going for it. It's completely anonymous. It can move between borders easily, so I can send money across the world or send cryptocurrencies across the world quite easily. It's not controlled by the banks, and a lot of fiscal policy is very centralized, and that's a wider argument as to whether that's good or bad. But it can't be controlled, so it is an interesting concept. That said, it's also very complicated for beginners, and it can be it's rife with scams, and it can be very easy, for example, to send your cryptocurrency to the wrong address, as my friends have.
Right.
So there are so many potholes you have to watch out for. But again, speaking personally, I hold about 5% of my savings in cryptocurrency, so that, as Martin Lewis said, if it goes to zero, then I guess nothing venture, nothing gain. If it grows over time, then that will be great as well.
So a lot to digest there. Very fascinating. We're going to discuss more with tech expert Guy Cocker about the difference between cryptocurrency and tokens straight after this. I saw the light. Todd Rundgren there on the late nights with Sunny and Shay. Now, tonight we are talking about and discussing cryptocurrencies. We're joined by technology expert Guy Cocker. You can get further details for him on his website, guycocker.com. And we were just talking about some of the pitfalls after Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, said you should only invest what you can afford to lose. And Sunny had more of a question around this.
We've got coins, and then we've got tokens. Tokens, you can get different forms. I've only found 5, I think, different types of tokens. Can you talk me through what a token is, and what are these different 5 kind of variations of it, and what do they hold?
Yeah, so Bitcoin was the first that sort of popularized cryptocurrency, but actually I think the more interesting stuff is happening in what you just talked about in tokens. So a lot of tokens are based on something called Ethereum, which is the second biggest cryptocurrency. I should say that the market cap for all of these coins as of today is about $1.48 trillion. So that's a lot of money. But cryptocurrency is the second most popular one.
Right.
And I think the interesting thing with Ethereum is that it's much smarter than Bitcoin. I won't get into the technicalities of it, but basically it allows you or me to do things like set smart contracts. So I could loan you some Ethereum or a coin that's based on Ethereum, and then have that paid back to me with interest over a period of time. But what's gaining a lot of traction at the moment are these tokens, like you said, which are based on Ethereum, which are kind of blowing up in the art world at the moment. So a lot of digital artists, including the likes of Damien Hirst, are getting into this, which allows them to sell a digital artwork that is then sold to someone who owns it. And this is the complicated thing for, I think, anyone that's not involved in the digital space, because you're owning something that's not physical. It's digital. So you could own a digital piece of, in theory, Damien Hirst artwork, and then you can keep a hold of it, and hopefully it goes up in value like other artwork, or you can sell it to someone else, and then they get the ownership of that. And what's interesting is that Damien Hirst or any other artist can say every time that piece of artwork is sold, they will get a 5%, a 10% cut of it.
Right.
So it's really good for artists. You're getting a lot of artists like Kings of Leon releasing their latest album as a non-fungible token. It's called, or basically a digital piece of art that can be traded. It allows you to get into all of their concerts for the rest of time as long as they're touring. So there's some really interesting stuff that's happening in that space, and it certainly feels like the future to me.
So when we do look at this, I mean, like, there's a whole idea of, like, I know that when I left school, I didn't know anything about tax, and we haven't been taught about that. But will this something that you think should be taught in schools, and how, we will be able to manage our finance and our investments in the future? And it should start at a ground level, from school level.
Yeah, well, I think financial literacy in general is a really important thing for a lot of young people. And I think from what I've seen in this space over lockdown, you've had a lot of people getting more interested. Obviously, their sort of entertainment has been stifled over the last year, and they're becoming more interested in things like general investments, traditional investments like stocks and shares, but also strange investments like Pokemon cards, which have been extraordinarily popular with young people. Doesn't make any sense to me, even. I'm 39, but it's extraordinarily popular because a lot of YouTubers are trading them and sort of boasting.
And also trainers, right? Trainers are another big popular. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So these items that are highly collectible, again, the markets can move so quickly, it doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. But, it's like anything else. The value of something is what someone else will pay for it. And at the moment, a lot of people are willing to sort of speculate on cryptocurrencies and trainers and Pokemon cards because they are a sort of new store of value. And it's really interesting. I would say it's really important for young people to become, interested and aware of money and financial literacy. And I think actually, to give young people credit, they really are aware of this stuff. And the idea for a lot of people, I think, is, well, if it's not a real piece of art, it can't. If it's digital, it doesn't really have any value. But actually, young people they live in a digital space, and they understand the value that something not physical can have real value and can appreciate over time. So I think it's a really interesting development and a really interesting space.
That was partly why we wanted to talk to you about it tonight as well, actually, Guy, is, there are so many Midlands-based businesses that are really coming to terms with a lot of the economic devastation they've had due to the pandemic. There are a lot of individuals, as you yourself have just mentioned, who otherwise would have gone down traditional routes of work and investment, and because of the pandemic are now looking at, what they should be doing next. And there's a lot of people in Midlands, of course, who've been affected when it comes to work and looking at what 2022 is going to hold. And so do you think cryptocurrency is going to be a big part of that conversation moving forward? Is it, you've mentioned, the younger generation quite extensively, but for those of us who have only ever understood perhaps stocks and shares, or as I mentioned earlier on, the basics of banking, do you think this is what people should be doing if they've got extra time to learn about it? Or in fact, if for some reason they have the ability to invest, is this the future?
I think it's a really interesting area. I think educating yourself is never a bad thing. I think the danger is that you get so many people on social media platforms like YouTube and TikTok who are saying, buy this cryptocurrency, it's going to go to, grow 1,000% in the next couple of weeks. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think it reminds me, if you went back to 2000, sort of the dawn of the .com era, where lots of websites were growing at such a pace and their valuations were just getting so crazy. And you had the crash in 2008, and a lot of those companies went to zero. For me, the sort of cryptocurrency boom feels a little bit like that. It feels as though we've seen this before. And, look, if you call me back in 2 years' time and we have this conversation and Bitcoin has absolutely quadrupled in value, I'll feel quite stupid. But it just feels as though it's a little bit of a risk at the moment. No one truly knows what's going to happen with the market. And it feels to me as though the market moves at such a pace that if Bitcoin isn't the big thing, something else might come along that will replace it or usurp it. So I think it's really important, and I would encourage anyone to educate themselves and have a look into cryptocurrency. But I really wouldn't put too much into it personally. Like Martin said, only as much as you're willing to lose.
It's a very valid point, is to have the understanding around anything before you decide to put your money where your mouth is, as they say. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show tonight, Guy. I know that listeners can get further details for yourself. If you'd like to head to Guy's website, he's a technology expert. Go to guycocker.com. That's the website. He's also on all social media, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Very simply type in Guy Cocker and you can get all of the details there. Would be great to get you back on, actually, Guy, if you're up for it in the coming weeks and months, to talk a little bit more about, other areas of technology, which I'm pretty sure you can enlighten us on as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sonny. Thanks, Shay.